Conversations. And I am your host. I'm Stu Harris, and I'm also the CEO and co-founder of Strategist, a marketing strategy and media production company. Welcome. If you're watching, obviously you're watching on our website or you're watching on YouTube, it's really great to have you here. And we'd just love to invite you, first of all, to participate in the conversation today by using the chat window. So if you're there, by all means, say hi through the chat window inside of YouTube, and let's have a conversation. Let's have a conversation, obviously, with our guest today, but I'd love to invite you to be a part of our conversation today as well. And while you're in YouTube, we'd love it if you could subscribe to our channel and stay notified by hitting the little bell button there as well, so that we can inform you of future episodes when they land. So this is actually our third episode of Story Conversations. We're still new, but we've had a great start. In previous episodes, I've interviewed screenwriter Simon Kennedy. And in the previous episode that we just recorded a few weeks back, I spoke with Ben Field from Hillsong, Adam Niven from ACC TV, and Els Griffian from New Faith Network. And our conversations have been about local film and television production, particularly in the faith market. And we know that there are many hundreds of people in Australia who work professionally in the film and TV industry who would like to create stories that connect meaningfully with audiences and help people engage with, I guess, more existential and spiritual themes as well. And so that's some of the kind of areas that we'll be tackling together in these conversations. But we hope to broaden our conversations beyond filmmakers and look at strategy and marketing as well in future episodes. So we will get to that. But stories have great power, and they have the ability to inform audiences about different perspectives and connect with people on deeper levels on all sorts of different topics and themes. They can also just entertain, right? They cause us, though, to think. Stories help us and they shape our ideas, they inform us. The characters in a well-written and well-performed story sometimes force us to think about things from a perspective perhaps that we hadn't previously considered. And today I have the privilege of speaking with Venessa Perdriau, a New Zealander living in Sydney, and I'm smiling because I probably pronounced that wrong, and yeah, we'll find out in a second. So Venessa lives in Sydney. She's also a storyteller, with this gift that we're talking about of being able to transport an audience into a space, at times an uncomfortable space, where perhaps we're forced to think about things from a different perspective. And we'll talk about that in a moment. Venessa is an award-winning screenwriter, director and editor with over 13 years of experience in the London film industry across a variety of formats and genres, including fiction, documentary, short films, feature films, music videos, commercials, and corporate films. Venessa graduated with first-class honours from the Met Film School in the UK, and Venessa began freelancing in roles such as production manager, producer, director, and editor for clients such as CNN, Bosch, Sony, Dyson, the British Museum, and Cancer Research. In 2016, her ambitious historical drama, The Widow's Last, won the Pitch Film competition in the UK. And in 2017, she began collaborating with LA producer Larry Frenzel to co-write and direct her first feature film, Eppie and the Moon Man. Based on the novel Dandelion Summer by New York Times bestselling author Lisa Wingate. And we're going to get more into those things and topics shortly. But first of all, let me introduce to you our guest, Venessa, and bring her on screen. That's actually a screenshot that you're seeing there of her, a poster frame from The Widow's Last, which we're going to be talking about. We're going to have a look at a trailer of that together as well in just a few moments. So let's unmute Venessa and bring her into the interview. Here we go. Hi, Venessa. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. And thank you for making it today. It's really good to have you in our conversation, and great to have you as, our next guest. So let's jump right into it, shall we? And
Yeah.
so you're a graduate of the Met Film School in London, and so yeah, how did film school help you gain, I guess, experience and confidence? I know reading some of your backstory, obviously you were passionate about film from even being a child, but what is it that film school in particular gave you in terms of confidence and experience as a screenwriter and a director? Let's start there.
Yeah, great question. Yeah, for me, film school was I think I knew I needed to go to film school. And I think it was sort of, I got to my finished school and was sort of wondering, what do I do? And, filmmaking just gripped my passions. But I hadn't really picked up a camera up until that point. So I really didn't know much about the craft of telling stories and creating film. And I was really looking for something that would just throw me in the deep end and sort of teach me all the different aspects of filmmaking, where I could just kind of learn as I went. So Met Film School, what that offered for me was, it was very intensive. So it was a highly practical course. I think we must have made like 20 films across the time that I studied there. And they taught everything from directing, writing, producing, editing. And it was very hands-on. It was very much about empowering you as a filmmaker to have your own voice. So it wasn't like, oh, let's make a class project and you can all chip in different roles. It was very much, you go away, you craft your story, and then pull in the team and make it happen. So it was, yeah, hugely immersive. I remember on the first day, I think they thrust a camera into my hand and said, go away and shoot a scene. And I'd never picked up a camera before. So, it was very much learn on the go, thrown in the deep end, sink or swim kind of moment. But it was great. It really taught me so much in a really practical way. And yeah, I just really felt like it, because it immersed you in so many of the different disciplines, I kind of came out with more of an idea of, I guess, where I wanted to hone and focus in on, for the next few years.
Oh, that's great. Well, in fact, that's kind of the second question, really. I was going to say, when you graduated, did you have a clear idea or a clearer idea perhaps of what you wanted to do next?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think I always knew I wanted to be a content shaper and creator. So I think that's what forged that passion for filmmaking in the first place, was that I wanted to be a part of, writing, narratives and stories that would be uplifting and bring a message of hope and a counterpoint to a lot of what I saw in the industry and the media. And I think, so from that perspective, I always knew that I wanted to do, writing, directing, that kind of stuff. But I think can be quite an organized individual. And I think females can often fall into being typecast as producers. So I think that's kind of what the role that I got sort of pushed into. And I remember on the first day of film school, they said, who wants to be a director? And pretty much everyone in the class put their hand up and they said, well, best you kind of think of a different role, because there's not many people that do directing. That's hard to get into. So I think I kind of came out and I thought, yeah, I do want to do directing, but it didn't seem like there was a clear, easy route to get into that. So I sort of did more production straight out of film school and assistant directing. But yeah, I think over time, I think my confidence grew and that passion never went away. And I just had to find different avenues to kind of exercise that skill and build that craft.
Yeah, that's good. And along the way, each experience sort of has given you the opportunity to sort of move up a rung, if you like, in the ladder. I mean, having sort of production or producer type experience and being organized would no doubt kind of get you noticed and being of help.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It was really very, very useful. And, as I said, I did also have, tons of the directing experience and the writing experience through that film school. But yeah, one of the opportunities that I had straight off film school, I think, was that Met Film School. They had a production wing and they invited me to do assistant producing and directing under a couple of their documentary side, but also the feature avenue as well. And that was just an invaluable experience because I got to work under some fantastic directors and just watch firsthand how they sort of shaped story and how they kind of, just to be straight off the bat working in a production company in the industry was such great experience. It kind of made it all very real, all that learning that I'd had up until that point.
So it sounds like, you're more of an advocate for, for film school. I mean, we you hear all sorts of debates about people saying, well, just get on with the craft of making, and then others sort of be more advocates for actually, the academic space of learning these disciplines and so on. And that sounds like a bit of a hybrid in a way, because through the academic, it gave you a route to actually practice underneath other people as well.
Definitely. I think there's no really kind of clear pathway necessarily. I think it's really on an individual level and a basis. So, my younger brother, for example, he's a cinematographer, and he asked me, do I need to go to film school? And I said, no, you don't. You really don't, because it's for him, he picked up a camera. What he really needed was just on-set experience and to make stuff. And that was, he just got more and more roles and got more experience. And he's probably, ahead of where I would have been at the same age, just because he's kind of, got that onset experience, which is fantastic. But for me, it was very much a necessity, and I felt like a fantastic experience because, as I said, it gave me a really holistic understanding of all of the different disciplines, and it allowed me to kind of understand where my passions were and focus in on those even more. So yeah, I think there's no real kind of easy answer. I think each person's got to assess, what are my ambitions, what are my goals, do I have to achieve them through film school, or will experience and sort of roles such as assistant roles on film sets get me the experience that I need.
That's not good. Okay, we have an internet issue, ladies and gentlemen, and I apologize for that. I'm just going to wait for a few moments and bring this back up on screen while we attempt to get Venessa back up on screen. I'm sorry about that. She will be back in just a few moments, hopefully. And here we go. I'm just bringing her back into the call. There we go. And we will pop Venessa back up on screen just a second. And okay, Venessa, you're back.
Wonderful.
So sorry about that, and apologies to everybody watching online. We had an outage. That's very odd, but there we go. Yeah, we're back into this. Sorry, let's get back into the question, and I'll recap just for a moment to make sure that everybody else can hear this and be reminded of the question rather. So we're just going to jump into talking about The Widow's Last, which is a short film that you produced in 2016, and let me just find my place again. Gosh. Dear me, it really threw me, that did. There we go. So in 2016, The Widow's Last won the Pitch Film Competition in the UK and was awarded a £25,000, pounds, not dollars, that's quite a bit more, production grant and development support. And the film made its debut at the prestigious Galway Film Flea. It's just Flea, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like the Irish word for festival.
Festival, yeah, that's right. I see, Englishman. I know Galway. It was a beautiful part of the world. I wish wish I could.
Stunning.
Yeah, and if you like music, Galway is like the capital of music in Ireland. So that was in 2017, and then it went on to play in 25 top-tier film festivals globally. The film was officially selected for the 71st BAFTA longlist and went on to win Best Short Film at Edinburgh Indie Film Festival and Best Production Design at Birmingham Film Festival before it was picked up for distribution by Aer Lingus and Omletto. So that's incredible. I'll tell you what, let's just jump to the trailer. I want to play the trailer first, and then we will, I'm just going to bring this up on my other and Best Production Design at Birmingham Film Festival before it was picked
need you to get better.
Those English bastards should pay for what they've done.
That's all we have left.
Michael!
We shot an Englishman. We need your help in finding him.
Help me.
Traitor.
Today, and let's talk about that. And so that was recorded. So that was produced in 2016, and as we heard, you were able to produce that with the production grant that you received, which is fantastic. Got my other screen here flashing away in front of me. Can you expand just a bit more for me and help me understand how the film festival circuit helped this film get additional exposure beyond what we saw? What was it what was this always your plan and hope for the short film? I mean, where did you imagine this going to beyond actually just making the film to start with?
Yeah, I think for me, when I set out to make the film in the first place, I had a couple of clear, concrete goals that I would hope the film would achieve. One for me was that it would act as almost a sort of calling card, sort of as a director, just to say that this is what I can do and what I'm capable of, and I think it's been great because it's been such a great opportunity to just stretch, do something ambitious, something cinematic, something that was in my heart, and put it on the screen. So that was a fantastic opportunity. I guess the other thing was that I really hoped that it would, reach people, and film festivals are a great mechanism to be able to reach people. So just even being able to get into those festivals and just have some reactions back. We weren't able to attend all of them, but we were able to sort of get comments and responses back from people who did watch it. And it was just great to see, how it's really reached people and impacted them. And even, it's gone up on Omeletto, which is a really great platform. And it sort of makes short films accessible to just general audiences, and just see some of the YouTube comments from people, and just the way that they're reacting to the story, and how it might have helped them through a difficult time, or what it's meant to them, or what they've read into in terms of the story itself. Often you set out with these lofty goals and say, oh, we hope this film's going to achieve this. But you never know, really, is it doing that? Is it having that reaction on people? So to get those comments and those feedback from people, it's been really great.
I was going to say, one of the comments that I There we go. All right. Apologies there. Having a few technical issues today, aren't we? Sorry about this, folks. Okay. I've just heard that we didn't hear the question, and in fact, or much of the answer. So can we just go back again? Sorry about this. And thank you to everybody for your comments, because, yeah, we wouldn't have known that we were having an issue there if it wasn't for feedback. Let's go back. So we just talked a little bit about the webpage. Everyone now knows where it is. You know, you can watch the whole movie there, which is fantastic. And I encourage everybody to do just that. Venessa, I asked you if you could share with us how, really what your inspiration was for the film. I know I'm asking you to go over some of this stuff already, but that was a rehearsal. As you know, you can do this. The Widow's Last, you know, it strongly advocates for themes about human struggles, justice, women, faith, and courage. What were your hopes for this film, and what were you hoping it would speak to audiences?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I was just saying before that I guess going back to my original hopes for the film, I guess take it back to the genesis and the concept of the idea. And for me, you know, I was pitching for a competition where you had to adapt a biblical story for a modern audience. And the story that I found, or that I adapted from, was the story found in 1 Kings 13, which is about the widow and Elijah. And what really struck me about this story was that you had this woman, and she was at the end of her rope. She had nothing left. You know, she was out collecting sticks to make the last meal for her and her son, because they were going to die. And essentially what happens in this story, she comes across Elijah, who is actually the one that called down the famine on the land. So he was directly responsible for her suffering, in a way, if you look at it that way. And this widow came from the town of Queen Jezebel, who was actually after Elijah. So really, if you kind of do a bit of digging into the geography and the history, they were really enemies. They were from people groups that were kind of really set as opposed to one another. And yet, when he asks for the last of her meal, she is able to kind of say, she's able to give the last of what she has to somebody that would be considered an enemy. And it just struck me, you know, what is it about this widow that, you know, where she was able to give her last, where she was able to, you know, sacrifice to somebody that would be considered the enemy, and you know, have compassion in such a time of hardship. So that really birthed this idea of kind of really digging into how do you take a person to that place? And, you know, this idea of compassion and humanity and hardship. And when I was looking for where to set this, the story of, you know, the famine, the Irish potato famine, really struck me, because you've got the English and the Irish. And, you know, there's this kind of, I guess, hostility between these two countries during that particular time. And there's a lot of prejudice, there's a lot of misinformation, and, you know, that, I guess, just posing that question, the relevance for today, you know, I guess, you know, like our present time, this particular film was set during a time of hardship. It's set during a time of sickness. It's set during racial strife. And my hope really was that this story and these characters would light a path for us for forgiveness, for humanity, for compassion, for redemption, to show us, you know, I guess when we choose that path that's not hatred, but for forgiveness, you know, where can that lead us to? What hope, what freedom can it bring in our own lives?
Gosh, it's incredibly powerful. And thank you for sharing the connection there, obviously, to the biblical story as well. I think you're, you know, in a very powerful way, you've been able to, I guess, tell two stories in that sense. You know, a parallel really there to really, you know, what was being said in Scripture. But and I guess this brings me to my next question: Are there themes in this, and perhaps other themes in other films that you've made, that you feel you want to keep writing about? Are these particular, are there sort of strong themes that you really feel called to write about?
Yeah, definitely. I really love the idea of redemption, of, you know, taking something that's broken and seeing it made whole. And I think that's such a beautiful arc, you know, throughout, you know, great storytelling, where you see flawed characters and you see them, you know, come to a place of, I guess, through the story, through the inciting incident, being able to kind of go on this journey where they confront their flaws, and either, see, change and hope and, redemption brought into their lives, or just meaningful change in people's lives. So, things like forgiveness, things like, as I said, redemption. Hope is a big one, I think, for me. It's a theme I'm sitting on at the moment a lot, because I feel like, it's particularly a time where I feel like the world needs to hear messages of hope. And what is real hope? What does that look like? What's the source of real hope? So I'm always interested in those stories and personal journeys that bring to the fore those themes and those ideas.
So, dare I ask, during COVID, have you found yourself kind of writing and thinking about how you might be able to, I guess, help connect people to hope through your storytelling? Yeah,
definitely. I think it's a really interesting time to be a filmmaker, and I think it's an important time to be bringing stories to people that are going to be hopeful during this time. And I think one of the feature film that I'm developing at the moment, that particular story has got a great story arc for our lead character, and really does center on this message of hope and reconciliation between families and family members. And it's really about this girl at the beginning of her life that really doesn't see much of a future and doesn't have much hope for a future. And it's about bringing that and how we bring that in. So that's one angle. But then I'm also, trying to think about, right now, it's just another idea that's been sort of circulating is this idea of kindness. And just simple acts of kindness and the profound impact that can have on people's lives right now. So that's, I'm trying to kind of come up with the concept around that. But
I love that. Yeah. And as someone, we're people of faith, and we're people that often, when we think about faith-based films, we can tend to get caught up in sort of theology. And I think what I like about what I'm hearing you say here is that there are certain, obviously, human characteristics that we're attracted to universally, regardless of our faith. But certainly as humans, we want acts of kindness, generosity, gratitude, hope. These are all very strong themes, which if I'm hearing you right, I'm hearing that these are things that we can draw on as creatives, as artists, as filmmakers, more and more, to try and help people connect with the story that we're trying to share, and perhaps lead them towards the destination, or where that hope is, where the source of that hope is.
So, 100%, Stu. I'm very passionate about tapping into just our shared humanity and not creating stories that are, polarizing and just for a Christian audience, but that are going to be connecting with people wherever they're at, whatever, we're all human. At the end of the day, we all, have similar things that we struggle through. And it's about, what's that light that can light the way, through the mechanism of storytelling. How can we lead people to that hope and that light through our stories that we tell?
That's wonderful. I want to hear a bit about the UK media industry, Christian media industry, dare I say. I mean, even though obviously you heard the accent, I've been here 20 years, so honestly, in Australia that is, and so I feel a little bit out of touch when it comes to what's going on in the UK. What's it like there? What was it like collaborating with others? Is there much collaboration? Is there much of a Christian connection between, other artists, other musicians, other writers, other producers of content? How did you find that?
I would say that actually I never really experienced a Christian filmmaking body out here like there is with CMAA, or that there wasn't that kind of I guess Christian media body that existed out there that I was aware of, at least anyways. However, that being said, there were many individuals and production companies that are doing amazing things in that space. I connected with Jackie Shepherd, who runs a production company, Footprint Films, Luke Walton, who runs Into the Pitch UK, and then just individuals through, I served in Hillsong, was part of Hillsong Church for 13 years. And, in the UK, and so many amazing, inspiring people in that space. that I got to just work with and meet with. And it was really all about those relationships. I always saw it more like, I think Tozer in the UK, there was some great, amazing Christians that were doing amazing things in the writing space for a time in the UK. And they always had this little group where they kind of met together and just talked stories and inspired one another. And for me, that was more the experience, was rather than there being an individual body, it was more individuals that I came across on my journey that inspired me and advocated for me and believed in me, and were there to hear me pitch ideas and stories and vice versa. So it was more sort of that relational kind of connection as opposed to one individual body. I will say that the main kind of sense I got from a lot of the kind of the BBC or the BFI out in the UK in terms of funding and opportunities, it's very much kitchen sink drama kind of was my experience, and it was quite it would be quite hard hitting, quite a lot of the stories that tended to be celebrated, in my opinion, came across as a bit hopeless. They were quite depressing, and so it wasn't really in line with, I guess, the kind of message that I wanted to create. So I didn't really find that the media industry from the main sort of funding bodies was necessarily aligned with the kind of storytelling that I wanted to do. If that makes sense. Yeah,
absolutely. So how, tell us about your experience of pitching your ideas. Obviously everybody's trying to, the people that I'm kind of connected to and people that we are probably speaking to here even on this platform, that people are trying to crack into the industry, find a way in, and to some degree, I guess we're still trying to find a way in. It doesn't necessarily stop just because of successful one film success. It's got to take many steps up the rungs of the ladder, if you like, to get all of our ideas out there, if you like. But and there's no silver bullet. But how do you know? Or have you found? How do you know, or who are the right people to pitch to? What's been in your experience? How have you found these people? Are they in the yellow pages, or?
It's a really good question, Stu. I wish they were in the yellow pages. I wish we could just look them up that easily. But yeah, I'd say So pitching, first of all, such a great and valuable tool, because I feel like it really hones your idea down. And so I guess even taking that step back, like I think it was in Story by Robert McKee. He gave this really great kind of summary about pitching. He said, just take your idea, see if you can boil it down into a story in 10 minutes, and then even just pitch across the table from, a friend or a relative or someone that you can trust to give you an honest opinion. And just spend 10 minutes, tell them that story and watch their reactions. Are they surprised? Are they bored? Are they engaged? Are they, interested? And if you can do that and you can tell your story, in 10 minutes to somebody and see that it's caused an emotional reaction, it's a good one, then I think you're onto something, and you probably need, then it's worth developing further. But if you're kind of boring the socks off someone, and you can't eloquently tell it in 10 minutes, you probably need to refine your pitch. So I think it's about getting that pitch right in the first place before you even take it out to people. But also pitching as well is a great tool because it helps you to hone your idea. I think it's really easy to be, quite broad and broad brush, but actually to be able to even, define your idea in one log line or one idea. I find it sometimes harder to write in the small than it is to write in the big. So just even getting that pitch prepared and ready and getting that idea distilled down to its purest form is such a great tool and such a great asset. And then the next step, finding the right people to pitch to. I think personally, probably for me, relationships are probably the best place to start. So if you're coming from a place where you're known and somebody knows who you are, and you already have a relationship there, then that's always a great place. So I guess it's about looking at, okay, well, who are the people that I currently know that are in my space and that are in my world? But I think it's also probably about finding people who want to create similar content. There's no point, going and pitching a drama to, somebody that does comedy. It's always going to fall every time because that's not what they are producing. It's not what is coming out of their slate. So I think it's about finding production companies and producers that are creating content or have content on their slate that is of similar kind of genre, similar tone to what you're looking to create. And then once you've found those companies and once you've done your homework and you've found those people, then it's really about, I guess, trying to get access. So a lot of the time now, some of these companies, it's like they don't accept unsolicited scripts or unsolicited ideas. So it's actually quite hard sometimes to get, a foot in the door. But that's where I think getting a great producer on board can really help. So trying to find and attach, or I guess collaborate with a great producer that's looking to create similar content, and then pitch your idea to them first, and then hopefully then that will they'll be able to open the doors that might seem impossible for you to open. So for example, the current feature film that I'm doing, Larry, who's the producer but also my co-writer on that project, he's got lots of relationships with production companies in the States, and just all through sort of jobs that he's done in the past. So it's that he's known, it's relationships that he's cultivated over many years. So he's not coming in, as somebody that, is this new quantity, I guess. And then, because we're working together on the project, he's able to open those doors that, as I said, I would never be able to get into probably Lionsgate in USA. They probably wouldn't even look at me. But because Larry's working with me, he's got relationship there, it's able to open up doors. So I think, hopefully that helps, just finding a producer, finding people that want to create similar content, and then relational,
Yeah, and I think also, we've just looked at one film here, and obviously, you've been working on you've produced a number of other short films as well, and I know that during your time at the film school, you produced a lot of content too. But in terms of collaboration, are there times where you've found that you've just sort of like got together with a group of other people, like-minded people, and just gone ahead and made something anyway, even if it's just for your show reel or something, but something that you can produce, that you can practice and your skills and get some more experience? Tell me about times when you've done those kinds of things, and what's been the fruit of that?
I probably should have done more of that kind of stuff in the past. But there've definitely been times, where I had, I think I ran a production company for a season, and during that time we just did projects for friends, and also for companies as well. But for that, it was really, we were operating as more of a small team. So it would just be about finding and collaborating with, those close connections and going out and just making content. But I think I'm at a stage now as well where I do feel like I just need to do that more. And so that's, for me, it's definitely a good sort of, I guess, encouragement, is just to kind of get out and just make as much as possible. It was really interesting, because I think I got to a stage where I'd made my my short film, and somebody had said to me, "Oh, you don't need to go away and make any more short films. You should be able to just use this as something to make a feature film off." But I think that's probably maybe been a bit misleading advice, I would say, because I think you need to constantly be making things, constantly be honing your craft. And getting better. So, yeah.
That's good. And so, you recently moved to Sydney from the UK. And so does it feel like you're sort of starting again, in a sense? You're working on a collaboration with some colleagues in the United States. You've just mentioned that. What about locally here in Australia? Are you looking to work here, work with others? How's that going?
Oh, definitely. There's for me, that was a huge thing in the move to Australia, was feeling confident that there would be some great collaborations and people I could work with out here. And there's just such a wealth of talent in Australia. I've been told time and time again that the crews out here are some of the best in the world, that there's just huge acting talent, there's amazing locations, there's great production companies. And then, of course, there's the tax incentives that are out here as well, which is very unique to Australia, where you get the 40% tax incentive for films, and then I believe it's 30% for television series. So it's just a great opportunity to be able to make content. And then another thing which has been really interesting from just, I guess, conversations I've had or podcasts I've listened to is that it seems like there's a lot of platforms out here like Netflix that seem to be wanting to develop original content, Australian content, with Australian voices. And that's, I think, just a really unique opportunity to be able to just create stuff out here. And then there's also some great schemes as well from Screen Australia, Screen New South Wales. So there's plenty, I think, of opportunity here to produce some great things. And for me, it's I think in order to sort of access some of these schemes, I think I needed to be here for 6 months, and I'm not there yet. I haven't been in Australia for 6 months yet, so I've still got to wait a little bit before I can apply. But there are some great things available.
So it sounds like you're getting kind of involved with, or at least trying to help, understand what opportunities there are through these different industry bodies. And you had obviously experience of those sorts of things, certainly, in the UK. So do you think there are enough opportunities for you to develop a career here in Australia? Or are you kind of looking more at those sorts of opportunities over in the States, for example?
Yeah, really interesting question. So I think there's definitely some opportunity to develop stuff, but I guess the trick is where you're going to find the rest of the funding. So you can access that 40%, but where is the rest coming from? And I think from my understanding of just trying to even just get a sense of what kind of content Screen Australia is looking to make at the moment, it probably maybe doesn't quite align completely with the kinds of projects that I'm hoping to kind of create in the future. But that being said, who knows? But I feel like in the USA in particular, there are lots of sort of production companies out there that have sort of spotted in the market that there's a great desire for, I guess, faith-based projects, or not necessarily for a faith audience, but that are sort of delving into those Christian worldviews, those, just that have a faith component to it, but that is very much accessible to non-Christians as well as Christians. And so there are definitely, studios and production companies that I believe are opening up and specifically looking for those kinds of projects. I'm not aware of, as many, I would say, in Australia, but there are certainly some around. So I think, I wouldn't want to be exclusive and say, just, Australia or just the USA. There's been a history of fantastic relationship and co-productions between Australia and the USA in the past. And I think that's really exciting, a really exciting space to be looking into as well.
Yeah, definitely. So obviously you're kind of you're new to the ground here, but we've talked a little bit about collaboration, and in the previous episode, we obviously interviewed Ben and Adam and Els, and we talked a little bit about the fact that we have the Christians in Film, Christians in Screen Media Facebook page as well, which always trying to look for ways to kind of encourage collaboration within that space, and looking for ways for people to kind of reach out and sort of give each other opportunities, not necessarily always commercial opportunities, but those ideas of like, I'm looking for someone to help me, work on this idea together. And do you see platforms like that, and certainly maybe even specifically that, how would you imagine that platform being helpful to you as a filmmaker? What kinds of things would you like to see people stepping out to do, or conversations started? What kinds of things would be helpful to you as a director, as a screenwriter, to help, spark, kickstart, start up, get things moving for you? What are you looking for?
Yeah, I think it's such a relational industry, and it's about finding those people that have, I guess, a similar heart to create the similar kind of content that you feel passionate about. And I think a platform like that is fantastic, because what it does is it creates space, to kind of share work. And so often in my journey, I've looked at other filmmakers and I've been inspired by what they've done and what they've created, and it's elevated my ambition in my craft. And and even just sort of the ability to maybe even collaborate with them in the future, or start up a conversation, or learn from them, or even, just, I guess, go behind the veil of sometimes, understanding how somebody made something or how they created it. It kind of makes it much less elusive and much more attainable. So just to be able to kind of share skills and share experiences and help one another and inspire one another, and even just to be able to have that platform where you can find those key people, those key producers, those key script writers, or collaborators that you can work with. I think it's just great to have a platform like that.
Yeah, that's good. I was just looking over my shoulder here at some questions. Joel has asked a question. Nice to have you on the stream today, Joel, and hopefully we'll see each other sometime in the future. Any thoughts around walking the line between bringing faith into your work and not making it too heavy-handed in the theme?
Yeah, such a good question. It's something I have constantly sort of tried to wrestle with in everything that I do. And I think there are a lot of great films and examples out there that do it very effectively. One that jumps to mind straight away, or there's several that jump to mind straight away. Look at a film like Forrest Gump, for example, and you think about that film, and not many people go, "Oh, that's a Christian film." But if you look at that film, through the middle of it, you've got a faith strand. You've got a kind of really profound story of Lieutenant Dan, who encounters God and has salvation. So that is, within a very appealing narrative that is so enjoyable, so entertaining, and so accessible to so many people. Or if you look at a film like Cinderella Man, which has got faith elements in it, and it's even got, really poignant moments and scenes in there where you have, him, the lead character, Russell Crowe, really wrestling with his faith and saying, I can't pray anymore. I don't know how I can pray right now, when he's struggling. And it's such a compelling story. So I think, Hacksaw Ridge again, it's sort of trying to see what are these stories that are touching on these kind of human, universal human struggles and dilemmas that we all face, and how can we be as real and as authentic as possible within that space? And also, how can we step away from, trying to be heavy-handed in our messaging? I think one of the things it's a very hard line to tread is, you want to say something, you want to make a film because you have something to say, and, there's a message, but then at the same time, you don't want that message to be so rammed down people's throats, or so forced that people can't engage with it. So I think one of the big lessons that I learned was when I was writing my, The Widow's Last, this particular story. I was working with a story consultant, and she was really great because she really challenged me. And I think I knew I wanted to land this message. And I had to really do a lot of soul searching and soul digging through the script writing process. I really had to ask honestly the question, how would this woman come to a place of forgiveness? And it was this mechanism of the child and the innocence of the child that helped to lead her to that place of being able to accept the enemy into her life. And I think just even, rather than viewing your characters as puppets, and you allowing the plot to kind of push the story forward, can you allow space and create space for your characters to be living and breathing all on their own, and not necessarily, tools to serve the plot, but sort of rethink the story from the inside out? How can you kind of follow the characters almost? And I think for me, that was very much a process of letting go, of going, okay, no, this is the end point I want to get to, but maybe it's not going to come in the way that I want to. I have to sort of allow the characters to be authentic, to be real, to be human, and sort of step back in a way and let the story let the characters almost lead the story. But also think there are so many tools out there in terms of craft of storytelling. There's some amazing resources, some incredible books that talk about what makes a story compelling and engaging. And I think for me, it's been a journey, and one I hope to continue for the rest of my life in terms of honing that craft, which is very much a craft of screenwriting and storytelling. And, how can we be the best storytellers that we can? How can we, make sure that, how can we learn from the best? I watch so many films all the time, and I read scripts all the time, and I try and just break it down and think about what makes this work, what makes the story work, what makes these characters' journey work. And so I think, sorry, that's probably a long answer to your question, but I hope it sort of touches on some of the key things.
It's a really great answer, and I was actually just caught up with what you were saying. It's lovely, and I think in fact Joel has responded to that as well, and he's likewise, he just says he loves the idea of allowing space for characters not as puppets or tools to serve the plot, but as who they are. So it is a wonderful thought. I like that a lot, allowing the characters to breathe as well, and seeing it from the inside out, as you said. And I think you've achieved that in a remarkable way, actually, with The Widow's Last. I felt very I think the raising intrigue is another tool that I think that you managed to do well in this film, because I wondered, what's happening here, what's going, because you kind of throw us straight into a situation, which sometimes I find stories kind of tend to take too long to get to really the place where you want people to spend time thinking, and you just took us straight there. And so immediately I was thrust into this question of, what am I doing here? What's going on? And I think so curiosity and that, kind of kept me wondering. And then you brilliantly, sort of seeing, obviously you brought the antagonist into the story, and I'm thinking, and then obviously the themes of forgiveness. I'm trying not to give away too much of the story here for people who are now, hopefully they're all this is a big trailer for this short film that you made in 2017. But, I think they're wonderful tools that you've used so elegantly and eloquently, I think, in this film. And you do need to be congratulated. I have another question here, one from Alex, who's asking, does Venessa have any Christian filmmakers she looks up to that are pushing Christian media in interesting directions? Yeah, I guess influencers, or people that you're admiring. They don't have to be influencers in our work necessarily, but they're people that we're looking at and are intrigued by. Who are you watching out there? Who are you interested by who are other crafts people out there?
I think I've always been quite very inspired by Mel Gibson's films. I think for me, that was actually one of the big turning points in terms of, when I watched The Passion of the Christ for the first time. I remember very vividly the experience in the cinema, and there was, I think the credits were rolling at the end of the film, and it was a packed cinema, and not one person moved. Every single person in that cinema was just either crying or just glued to their seat, completely impacted and transfixed by what they'd just seen. And I think that moment for me was such a powerful moment where I realized just how impacting and how profound the medium of filmmaking and storytelling can be, how resonant it can be in people's lives. And, I think for me that was quite a profound experience. And I think just watching his work, Paxel Ridge, for example, I think there's a great story. He's very authentic and real. He's somebody I would love to kind of shadow for a while and learn from. I think he's very, I listened to a podcast from Gillian Anderson, and she sort of spent some time shadow directing with him, and she said he's just such a passionate director. He's so involved, and he's always thinking about the story, and he's always thinking about, in every scene, what's the audience thinking in this moment. And he's just a passionate, talented storyteller. And he's, he makes films that I think, he's not afraid to go places, and I admire that, and I admire his courage and his storytelling courage. And I even think that there are some, I think Fury, that was the writer of Fury, I believe he's a Christian as well. I remember being really impacted by that particular film. Again, not a film that you'd look at and necessarily see as a traditional Christian film at all. It's shows some very hard scenes to watch, but there is a strand in there in particular where, I think they mention the story, the Book of Esther, and they talk about being born for such a time as this. And it comes at a point in the story that's just so powerful and so impactful. And it just, I always love watching that. And, even A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, I don't know fully whether or not the filmmakers that made that or the writers were Christian, but the story that it was based on was very much of a Christian. And to me, that was just, a really unique way of telling a story. Really, they did some really different, interesting things. But again, the story was very compelling. And it was all about just somebody just being authentic, in their faith and who they were. So, there's a lot of great stuff out there.
And I think those films, the pattern to me that I think is, the films that are successful, if you like. I mean, maybe putting aside The Passion for a minute, because I think that intrigued people for other reasons as well. I mean, it was, but a lot of these stories films you just mentioned, it's about the characters, obviously, but also we're talking about we're observing who are they, how do they respond to their circumstances, and that's actually what we're more interested in. Whether they're, how we label people, I guess is in a sense secondary in that sense. We're kind of, I think, when we're watching story, we're interested in learning. We've got to be reminded that we're trying to understand, how is somebody going to respond to this situation they're in? How is the character going to respond to the struggle, the scenario, the impact that this event has happened in their life? And I think if we forget that when we're making film, when we're making stories, then we're kind of almost doing something different. And I think that's, I guess maybe going back to Mel Gibson's The Passion, I guess we are looking at Jesus and saying, how is he responding, not just theologically, but, what is this about? But how is he responding to, incredible violence, separation, his mother, the look, that scene where there's that image, that glance between him and Mary, Mother Mary, just looking at each other, and you kind of suddenly it humanizes the story that for people, and I think that's such an important reminder, isn't it, in storytelling? I mean, that's what we should be trying to achieve, surely. And I think
absolutely, I loved, and that was one of the things I loved most about the film, was those human moments and how they interposed those very difficult times that Jesus was going through with just such human vignettes, where you saw him, tossing water at his mum and, building a table, or, just something simple, something very human. And it made it relatable. And, I think that's always a key, is to always think, how can I make this relatable to everyone?
We like many people who may be even watching now, we've been watching as a family, we've been watching The Chosen, as the TV series, and I think what I've enjoyed the most about that is that I think they're achieving this well. The character, like getting to know the disciples, as not just characters, biblical characters that we expect to behave a particular way. I mean, I almost imagine, whenever I think of the disciples, I kind of see stained glass windows of kind of mystical figures with halos, but actually this is a story about human beings that we're trying to figure out, hang on, this man is God, we've been waiting for him for all these thousands of years, but hundreds of years, and here he is, and then they're responding, and so I think The Chosen as an idea is, I think they're achieving this quite well in terms of like trying to help us get to know the character and the struggle of what it would have been like, perhaps, because it's all just an idea. It's nobody really knows. We don't have a lot of there's not a lot to read into, how did Peter respond, but I mean, there are little clues here and then. You can see we always like to pay out on him for being being aggressive, or ditching Jesus at the right moment, just at the crucial moments or whatever, but yeah, I think they're doing a remarkable job in that too. And I mean, what's your reaction? Have you been able to see it yourself?
I've watched the first series, and I really liked. I think what works so well is that you can kind of see yourself, just as you say, in each of these characters. They're just human, so they're really accessible, and it's not And I think what I love is it takes us straight into, when it's introducing all of these characters, their point of need. You know, in every one of those scenarios, you've got, you know, Mary's journey and her very real point of need. You've got Simon and his financial difficulties and his struggles and his challenges. And they're all challenges that we can relate to. They're all needs that we face and struggles that we face. And in the midst of it, you've got an encounter, you know, and really an answer brought in the form of Jesus, and directly into each of those struggles and needs. And I think it works very well because, it's connecting with that, you know, something we can all relate to and connect to.
Yeah, that's really good. Vanessa, this has been such a great conversation. I'm going to have to wrap things up, I'm afraid, because we're about an hour, and I know people have got other things to jump into as well. But it's been really helpful and really a great, you know, joy for me to be able to have this conversation with you today. Obviously, I hope that everybody else has enjoyed the stream as well. I'm going to, we're going to say goodbye to Venessa for the moment, but can I just encourage everybody that's watching to maybe say hi to Venessa through, you know, through maybe the Facebook group. If you haven't already joined, jump into Christians and Screen Media. It's a good place to join, because I know Vanessa's a member there as well. So if you're not already in there, then go ahead and join that group and say hi to each other. Let's make some great projects and champion each other as well as we do this. But thank you, Venessa, again for joining us today, and look forward to catching up with you again soon.
Thank you, Stu, as well, for creating this space. As I said, it's a very special space that you've created for us to kind of inspire and have conversations with one another as filmmakers. So thank you.
No, not at all. No problem. It's, you know, certainly my hope that we'll have lots of conversations with lots of different people, and just keep encouraging each other and inspiring people. It's good. Thank you again. I'm going to just wrap this up now with, make sure I'm not on mute, because I did that earlier on and that was a bit naughty, wasn't it? But yeah, I'm just going to wrap up the event now, but just again thanking you for coming. Please make sure you share this with your community as well. Make sure you join, or at least subscribe, I should say, to the YouTube channel. We'd love to be able to notify you when we get the next story conversation scheduled. We'll also publish the contact details for Venessa as well on the storystrategist.com.au website. Just have a look under conversations, and in fact we'll create a blog post for this episode with her contact details as well, and links to show notes, things like the website that we've been looking at, and obviously a link to the film so you can watch it yourself as well. I have future episodes planned and guests in the pipeline to join me, so stay connected by following us. Follow Story Strategist on Facebook, Instagram. Already mentioned the YouTube channel as well, and we'll keep you posted as well. But thank you again, and I hope you'll join me again soon for another story conversation.